Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Hana. I am a biohacking coach, trauma coach, and content creator. I also practice medicine as my full-time career, and this is my car Halaqat with Hana series. So I was thinking that for today, I wanted to walk you guys through kind of the practical side of what I do when I'm hitting a low episode. Now, if you have been on my channel for a while or have seen other videos, then you should know by now that I've had an extensive journey with my mental health. I dealt with chronic depression and anxiety for a very long time, and it really took its toll. And I found out later that it was from complex PTSD from trauma. It took a very long time to get that addressed. Alhamdulillah, after doing so, I am in a much better place. But that doesn't mean that I'm not human and that I don't have days and moments and times when I feel like there's a little bit of a relapse or I'm not feeling the greatest. And I've learned through extensive trial and error that in order to not let those moments beat you down, you have to learn how to get ahead of them. And so I know a lot of people who are watching my channel are also dealing with struggles with their mental health. And you guys might have these episodes as well. So let's walk through kind of a practical guide to how to get yourself out of it before it ends up taking you down. Now, I'll start off by saying this past week, I'll say, has been a little more stressful than usual. Life circumstances, some stuff that you guys will find out later, inshallah. But it's definitely been disrupting my sleep, has me thinking about a lot of things, dealing with a lot of important conversations, all that good stuff. Well, I dealt with two pretty negative situations in the past 2 days. And one of them happened when I was like already very exhausted, very tired, on the verge of a migraine. Bad timing, right? So I already, my stress tolerance was down here and it kind of knocked me down. I recovered from it. I was like, I'm not going to let this ruin my week. And then subhanAllah, another thing knocked me over, I'll say. So I know I'm giving vague answers here, but you guys can kind of take this is more so for you guys to relate to, so you can apply it to your life. Anyways, so then that second event happened, and I said on a recent podcast that I was on the Mad Mamluks podcast. I'll link it below, inshallah, if I remember, for you guys to watch it. It was really informative. We talked a lot about trauma, the science of trauma, the science of biohacking, all that good stuff. But I was asked, how do you know when you have mental health issues or when you're dealing with trauma? And I said as my answer that your body will tell you. And my body was definitely telling me that things were not about to go well. And so I was much more agitated. I felt very tense in my body. My sleep was just like not what it was. During my sleep, my jaw was tensed. I was like clenching my jaw, which is a telltale sign for me that I'm stressed, because I don't do that unless I'm stressed, alhamdulillah. So it got to me. And the next morning when I woke up and I felt very heavy, and I felt very low, and I felt very tense and agitated and like anxious, and I just didn't feel like myself. I'd been doing so well, and I knew that this was the beginning of what was going to be a bad mental health episode, and I just refused to let it get there. So I sat with my emotions. And so this is kind of like step one, right? You sit with yourself and you just recognize that you're not feeling that great. And I know it sounds super simple, but the thing about it is that when we have an experience of emotions that are negative and don't feel good, for so many people, we are taught to just bury the feeling and ignore it. But the thing about it is, when we're dealing with that type of anxiety and we push it down, all our brain does is sound the alarm even more. And so it's going to come out later. So I sat with myself and I was like, okay, what's going on and what am I feeling? And then I sat down and I started trying to think about what triggered this tension and anxiety in me and the sadness that was following, right? So with that being said, step two is identifying what the primary emotion is, I guess you could say. So what's the main thing that's there? Is it sadness? Is it anxiety? Is it dread? Is it fear? What is like the main thing? And then what are the associated emotions? The reason I say that is because if you want to dig deep and try to figure out what is actually going on, you have to identify the primary emotion. And so once I did that, and I started reflecting on some of the things that were contributing to it, I decided to crack open my laptop and just start kind of journaling. Now I journal usually by typing. It just allows me to feel like I'm able to get everything out versus writing where I'm a slower writer. And I just went ahead and spit out everything that I'm feeling. And right, it's like when people journal, sometimes you don't realize, you don't know what to say. And so a good place to start is just by articulating what you're feeling. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling heavy. I'm feeling nervous. I'm feeling disconnected from myself. I'm feeling ashamed. Whatever those are, go from there, and then start talking about, well, what is causing this feeling, right? And what are the experiences? So I started typing about what it was that the things that happened in the past week, basically, that caused me to feel this way. Just after doing that, I felt a lot more tense, actually. So here's why traditional journaling, I don't like it, because I feel like what it does is it actually exacerbates the emotion, because now you're fully in it as you're expressing it. So I didn't just stop there. What I ended up doing, and this is also a system that I teach, is I read through what I had written, and I let myself again just sit with the emotions of it. And then by reading through it, kind of having stepped away, right? Because I already poured the emotion out. Now I'm kind of looking at it from a distance. I can now identify point 1, 2, 3 of what was actually going on. So I was like, okay, point 1, these are the emotions I'm feeling. Point 2, this is event number 1 that contributed to these emotions. This is event number 2 that contributed. These are my fears around it, blah, blah, blah. So like all of that information that I just spat out that I wasn't thinking, it's kind of stream of consciousness journaling when you're really writing out your emotions. Now I'm able to formulate it into kind of a system of like what is actually going on and what's wrong. And from there, I wrote a new section of journaling where it was like, okay, like what do I need to hear right now to help me through this? And so there was a lot of kind of affirmation, mindset shifting that was happening in that time. And that's what I knew I needed, right? So first things first was like, okay, it's valid to be feeling this way. You're a human being. Like when crappy stuff happens to human beings, we feel crappy. Completely normal, right? You don't need to panic about it. I don't need to freak out about it. I don't need to feel like something's wrong with me because I'm reacting to this way. But what I do need to do is give myself more information, right? Because oftentimes when we're having extreme emotional reactions to something, our brain starts to focus on the anxiety around it and not on the truth of the matter, right? Not on like what someone on the outside looking in would tell you. So you have to become that person for yourself. And so I did that, right? There was a lot of religious affirming, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who takes care of me. And like, if XYZ isn't being fulfilled by XYZ, then I can expect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fulfill it for me, right? And like I turned it into a gratitude session, just like alhamdulillah for this thing in my life, right? Even though these things might seem like they're going wrong and they're causing me stress, well, at least all these other things that I have in my life are actually going so well, and how grateful I should be. That gratitude thing honestly made me feel so much better. And then from that point, I just sat down and I was like, okay, I feel much better now. And what am I going to focus on? Like, what are the things in my day that I'm going to do to not allow everything that was weighing me down to win? And I just listed a few things that I wanted to do in my day to make it a productive day. And I knew that if I could knock those things out, then I would feel like I was moving towards my goals and not letting what was weighing me down in the morning to win. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that when we are thankful, He increases us. And I felt that immediately in my gratitude, right? And also the Quran is full of mindset shifting messages. The whole, such a huge part of the Quran's purpose is to help us identify the truth and frame our mindset around that. So sometimes when we're living in these places of fear, right, it reflects a lack of trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a lack of understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's qualities, right? Because if we truly understood Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the most merciful, was Al-Wali, our protector, right? We wouldn't really have the feelings that we have. But Allah gives us a license to experience these feelings because we're human beings. We just can't let them rule us and make us forget the truth of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his qualities. I hope that makes sense, right? Because there's a shift of focus that happens when we're in our emotions, and when we can go back to the truth of the matter, and very often it's like the most basic truths about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what we know in our deen, we can recover a lot of peace that was initially missing. Now, that's honestly huge. That in and of itself is enough to completely change your life if you truly lean into it and believe it. But then also, right, action changes emotion. Movement changes emotion. When you're able to just get up and do after all of that, you disprove the hypothesis in your mind of whatever it is you were worried about, right? Because you're showing, hey, even despite these worries that I have, I'm still able to take the actions that I need to improve my life, right? And so for me, just being able to like knock out a few things, it just made me feel so much better, because I was like, I was so worried about this thing in the morning, but look at the stuff that I'm doing right now that's actually alleviating that worry, right? Now, I do want to be like straight up with you guys. At a certain point, after I did my whole journaling thing, I actually texted a friend and I just told her, hey, I'm having a really hard time this morning. I felt like it was going to spiral out of control, so I started doing journaling, blah, blah, blah. This is how I'm feeling. And I just wanted to share that win with somebody. Don't be afraid to use an opportunity for connection. You use your emotions like that hard moment as an opportunity for connection. Sometimes we really do just crave that validation from people. And as human beings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to co-regulate with one another. Like our nervous systems, our brains have a particular component that is meant to connect with other human beings, like notice other human beings and react to their actions. So that's part of the concept of jama'ah, right? In our deen, it is very much emphasized that we move in community, right? There's a reason why salah is prayed in the masjid. Or there's a reason why when someone gets married, we are required to celebrate it in a wedding, right? In a community space. So use that opportunity as a connection to connect to your tribe, to connect to your community, and don't be afraid. And when my friend sent back to me that she was just so proud of me, and like, because she knows the past decade, we've known each other for a while, so she knows where I've been and she knows where I am now. So she was saying she's just very proud of me to see how I'm handling things and coping in the systems that I'm using. And subhanAllah, you guys, when I got that message, I cried. Like, I didn't think that I would break down, but I cried, because one thing that I felt for a very long time, and it was a heavy feeling for a long time, was I felt very lonely, and I felt very disconnected from other people, and I felt very unworthy of love. Like I truly, I as a coping mechanism and as a protective feature, I guarded myself so much. And a lot of times those who were supposed to be the most expressive of their love were the ones that caused me the most pain. And because of that, I felt a very negative association with the idea of love, because it's almost like, who do you trust, right? And I still struggle with that today, even despite having a lot of people around me who I do love and who I know logically love me. And so when she said that, there was this moment where it was almost like the little girl inside of me came out, and I just broke down. I cried, and I don't cry very easily. It's not that I'm not sensitive or emotional. It's that because I spent so many years shutting down the crying and not letting people see the crying because they interpreted it as weakness, I fully disconnected from that part of me, and I'm now relearning how to be vulnerable again with that. So it is actually, for me, it is a win. It is a good thing when I'm able to cry. I don't see it as a weakness anymore. I'm proud of myself, because it's so hard to even get me there. It's like the amount of the amount of, like, I don't even know what I'm saying. It's like the amount of energy that it takes to even get me to cry is a lot. So I'm proud of myself when I'm able to do it, because I know that's a release of emotion and pain. And the thing is, when I know that I need to cry but I don't, it actually ends up completely ruining my mood. Like, it'll cause me a lot of anxiety. So it's, I just end up, I would rather just cry it out. So I just let it out at that point, and I recognize that this was a little girl inside of me, essentially the metaphorical little girl inside of me, who at that, in my younger years, didn't feel like I was deserving of love, and I had to tell myself, like, it's okay that a friend just told you that she's proud of you and that you are worthy of someone else's appreciation. So many people experience this to varying degrees, right? And sometimes I feel like we don't like to admit it, men or women, that we struggle with this, but it's real. And listening to that voice and just like validating it in the sense of saying, hey, Hana, I know this is hard for you to do, reach out for help, and you should be proud of the fact that you're doing it. That can be really powerful. So yeah, guys, I hope this was helpful. This is just a sense of me walking you through kind of an action plan of what did I do when I felt this anxiety coming on, knowing that if I did not do anything, it would have ended up lasting minimum 3 days. That's just kind of the pattern it takes. Maximum 2 weeks, like, to get myself out of it. And I just have a very busy next 2.5 months. And I just recognize that I need to be able to focus and need to be in a good mental space to be able to handle the workload that I am going to be taking on. Otherwise, I'm gonna crash and burn, and I just don't want that to happen. So I'm trying to be very good about that. If you guys are interested in kind of a video of what I do in terms of my self-care and my religious maintenance routine and all of that, so whenever I have a really busy season of my life, drop in the comments below and I'll make a video about that. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this kind of content, then please like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. If you are a subscriber and you've watched this video all the way to the end, then I please would like to ask you if you could comment below that you subscribed. I will be replying to you with a special message, inshallah, as a thank you for subscribing. Thank you guys so much again, and assalamu alaikum.